Welcome once again to another episode of the talk show featuring your host Jason Takhtadjian here with a new type of show or episode rather, because I'm solo today, and this is quite the start. You know, I used to do a lot of solo shows back in college, and this is the first time I'm doing a solo show with the talk show. But, you know, I thought that I would just take this opportunity to really just speak to you guys, whoever's watching, to just tell you a little bit about myself, my journalism career, a little bit about my life as well, and kind of all the events that have led up to me sitting in this chair right now in Fresno, California. So, for folks who don't really know, I am from Glendale, California. I was born in Glendale, California in 1998, February 15. That's my birthday. I'm an Aquarius. Make that what you will. But at the same time, you know, my parents weren't thinking of staying in California because it was just way too expensive. So when I was about 5 or 6, I think six years old, that's when we moved to Vegas. And, you know, my memories in California were brief, but they definitely still stuck with me, especially as a kid. I have a memory from literally my 3rd birthday in California in this place, which I actually don't remember the name of its actual name, but in my childhood, I would call it Train Town. And if any of you guys lived near Glendale and you guys drove like towards Studio City near those mountains in North LA area, you would know what I'm talking about, because right next to the highway there was a whole set of trains and all these like displays, and there was like a horse ranch that was next to it. I would go there religiously as a child. That was like one of my favorite memories as a child, going and, you know, just learning more about trains. And that's one of the things that, you know, as a kid, I love trains, I love dinosaurs, and that was one of the main reasons why, was because of that experience with my family, especially with my dad taking me to this park to have, like, you know, just fun days and fun outings. I remember I had a preschool or kindergarten in California that was Armenian based, and really that was like the beginning, the semi-beginning of me learning Armenian, because you know, when I was a little kid, my parents would go work, and I would usually be babysitted by my grandparents from my mom's side of the family. That's how I learned Armenian. My Armenian is a bit broken, though, because I learned both Western and Eastern Armenian throughout my entire childhood, and even in Vegas, you know, just learning more and more about, you know, being an Armenian. And I just feel like I never really locked down one specific language, so I'm just pretty, like, proficient in both, but I can code switch when I need to, but at the same time, there's moments when I need to still think about, okay, what's that word again? Oh, yeah, that's right. So it's a little bit of a, you know, just a playing game there, and ultimately, we did move to Vegas when I was about 6 years old. Went to first grade, went to school in Vegas at Sandy Miller Elementary. It was an international baccalaureate program school. I remember my mom put me in a lottery, and we were chosen to go to that school just by chance, I guess. I probably have to ask my mom about the full story on that soon, but pretty much, you know, went through school in the International Baccalaureate program from 1st grade to 12th grade in Vegas. So Sandy Miller was the elementary, Roy Morton was the middle school, and then Valley High School, obviously, was the high school. So that's kind of like the education side of things. You know, that International Baccalaureate program was, you know, making you a world learner, making you a thinker, making you well-rounded in so many different aspects. And, you know, I guess from an early age, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. I don't think it was until maybe first year of high school when I started to really think about that. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was just driven by money, and I wanted to make money quick. So naturally, I went to engineering. I gravitated towards the mechanical engineering with an aerospace, you know, focus. Whenever I was done with college in Valley, in Vegas, I was accepted into the engineering program at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So I was able to stay in town, save money. I got scholarship. I got FAFSA. It was all good. And I know that I, like, basically zoomed past my first through 12th grade years. I'll talk about that a little bit too, because, you know, growing up, one of the biggest aspects of my life was sports, and it still is sports. But growing up specifically, it was all about soccer for me. And a little bit later, it was about basketball. And even more later, it was about combat sports. I never grew up, you know, playing baseball. I never picked up a baseball bat. Never really played football like that. Only was really into soccer that much. Basketball, even to a lesser extent, I played that. If folks don't know already, I'm 5'6" on a good day, and that means that if I'm wide open, I better make the shot pretty much. Otherwise, I'm a liability on a basketball court because I'm not Muggsy Bogues by any stretch of the imagination, no pun intended. So, oh, would you look at that? My alarm went off, but we're going to continue rolling with this because, sports was a pivotal point, part of my life, and kind of the main reason why I've gotten to the position where I am now, because when I got into UNLV, like I said, I got accepted into engineering. But after the first semester, I realized that this is not something that I'm interested in. And this is something that I do definitely struggle with, even today, where it's like, you know, I had A's, I had a couple B's, I had one C in my first semester at UNLV in engineering. I start to think to myself, you know, what if I stayed, you know, through engineering? You know, what would be different? You know, what company would I be working for? Would I still be doing something in the realm of media because I still liked using video cameras and I still liked doing sports-related content, even before UNLV. But, you know, that was a rude awakening. I remember my first class in UNLV in Engineering 101, EGG 101, and it was a big lecture hall, about 100 or 120 students. And the one thing that the professor said that stood out to me was, there's about 120 of you guys here, maybe 10, maybe 20% will graduate between 4 and 6 to 7 years with bachelor's degree, not even master's, not even whatever. And I think that was a very dumb approach from the professor. Because why, okay, I understand being realistic, but why are you deterring students at such a young, early part of their, you know, schooling career? It's not even their professional career. If anything, we should be motivating these students to go towards these careers and not, you know, just slapping them with the cold, hard fact that, oh yeah, about 80% of you are not going to get your degree. I don't think that's a necessary detail to share. I do hope that they change that UNLV, because I do think that deters people from going in that field, because it was honestly fun. I remember a robotics class at UNLV. God bless our professor's heart, but we understood half of the things he said, but he was so smart, and he would show us what to do most of the time. He would show us on the computers what to program, how to program certain things, because the whole point of the class was to create a sumo robot, and those robots at the end of the semester would battle with each other, and the winner would get extra credit. So, you know, that was one of the things that was really fun to kind of do, but ultimately, I felt like I was already making my mind up about a couple months before the semester was up, so my heart was pretty much out of it. And, you know, that's something that I still, you know, think about and contemplate. Like, what if I just stuck with the course, you know, especially nowadays with, you know, space exploration taking off and all these other, you know, technological advancements that are out there. I understand engineering is one thing, but, you know, if learning how to code, getting into AI, you know, these type of things weren't necessarily in the forefront of conversation between 2016 and 2020 at UNLV. So, yeah, that definitely weighs on me and is something that I do think about, but I am still grateful for what decision I ended up making, because after that first semester at UNLV, I was going to do a second semester of engineering. I submitted and I got into those classes, and I did 1 week in the second semester with an advanced like Calc 2 and all these other, like, I forget what the class was. It was another coding and computer class. And I felt like I was out of my depths completely. I was like, I feel like I need way more background experience and knowledge to know any of this stuff. I feel like I'm just being thrown in the fire. And it's going to be an absolute disaster. So I made a decision that was not popular with my parents, not popular with the Armenian community at the time, not popular with pretty much anybody, to go from engineering to journalism because of my love for sports, not even because of general news. So I get into, I believe, a meeting, and that meeting was with a counselor in the journalism department, and I believe that meeting, I want to say it was with Dave Norris. It was a professor who's still at UNLV today. I remember him because he was a big-time lacrosse player. I think he still is, and he would coach and ref and all this type of stuff. But I think a conversation with him and then a friend of mine, Mark Chisholm Jr., really geared me towards getting into journalism immediately. So I kept a couple of the engineering-related classes that semester. I dropped the mathematics class because the math requirement for journalism is only algebra, and I was in Calc 2. It's like, I understand I spent the money and everything, and that's about $1,000 I'm never going to get back in my life, but that was just kind of a decision that I thought at the moment was the right thing to do. Drop some classes, add some journalism classes. And within a month of making that switch in that semester, I knew that I made the right decision, because I was having a lot more fun. I was actually enjoying the work that I was doing. It felt like I could use some of the things that I learned in my past towards this, as far as writing skills, as far as, like, I love writing essays, like back in the day in high school and stuff like that. I would love writing essays and love writing and telling a story from A to B, telling a full, concise story. And I really enjoyed the transition because I was actually able to get into this course that helped me get my own radio show within a month of transitioning to the journalism department. And I had a focus in sports broadcast, but there is a radio station at UNLV called 91.5 HD2 KFSR, I believe I think that's what I could be completely wrong, but it was an online radio station, and I passed a class that gave me the opportunity to have my own show. And that was the first actual show that I had in my life. It was called Bylines and Baselines. For those who don't know, byline is the line in soccer next to the goal. That's right next to the goals. And then the baseline is same idea, but with the basketball court. And that show was a 30-minute show every week on Wednesdays or Thursdays, literally just talking about all of the big topics in the world of soccer and the world of basketball, meshing it together, even talking a little bit about Vegas sports. And I loved it. I loved it so much. That was so much fun. I would stream some of those shows on Facebook, and I would get so much support from my family, and a lot of support from, people who were, mutuals in high school and stuff like that. And that was really great. That was a big driving factor for me in UNLV, was the support from my family, whether it was my parents, my sister, my cousins, my godparents, my other cousins, anybody that was somewhat related to us or knew our family. That was something that was really sticking to us, and sticking to me was the support, and it really helped me drive me in this industry, because the truth of the matter is I was trying to go into sports, and I have this mentality that, if I put in the work, why not me? Because I get it. I'm 5'6", I'm overweight, a little hairy, now I have even more hair. But the point of the matter is I'm not an athlete. I played sports back in the day, but never became professional. And nowadays, when you look at the coverage of sports in this entire industry, it feels like we are getting ex-athletes because they have an experience, but we're very picky and choosy with people who don't have that specific experience, if they weren't a coach or if they weren't an athlete, to get into the world of sports. But I didn't want any of that to deter me. I just wanted to continue to work and prove to everybody that, I could hold my weight at the age of 21, maybe 2021. Like, I remember vividly, whenever I first got into my sports broadcast class at UNLV for Rebel Report, that was, taught by John Castanino, who to this day I wish he continued to get his flowers for creating the Rebel Report, that UNLV themselves, seems like they kind of brushed to the side, but that's another conversation for another day. I remember he took me under his wing. John Castanino, he used to be sports reporter at Fox 5 in Las Vegas, and he allowed me to shadow the Rebel Report class for a semester before I actually was part of the class because of my eagerness to learn and be part of it. But I needed prerequisites to actually take that class. I needed to take prerequisite courses before. And John was like, just sit in the back of the class, listen, take part, take notes. If there's a test, you take it. If there's an assignment, you do it. And then we'll see, if you make it into the class after that. And that was where my love for sports broadcast really grew. I had a big working relationship with John Castanino. One of the things that stands out with me with that professor was his lack of knowledge in the world of soccer, football. And I remember like a couple years prior, there was an unthinkable achievement made in the world of soccer, and that was a small team called Leicester City in the English Premier League top division that won the Premier League at odds that, like, if you bet $100, you'd have like $100,000 or something, even more probably. But the point is, I remember one of the gifts that I gave him whenever I was leaving, when I was graduating, was a Leicester City jersey, a blue Leicester City jersey, and that photo is still on my Instagram to this day. And that was just such an awesome memories with the Rebel Report, making friends with so many people like, Lydia Vasquez, Karina Trujillo, Brianna Hernandez, Megan Platt, all these other people. That, Deontay Hagler, he was a good friend of mine. We actually started a debate show at UNLV called The Rundown, based off of First Take. I don't think it's going on now. I don't think the students over there want to continue it, which I don't understand why they wouldn't. But the point is, it was a debate show. You had freedom. You could produce different segments. You could have, like, points. There was so much freedom, and there were so many things that could be, like, done with that it's a bit disappointing now to see them not take advantage of that. What I am really proud of with UNLV, though, and the Rebel Report, is that there are certain students that are taking the opportunity by the huevos, and they are just running with it. And I love it because UNLV now has a partnership with the UFC. During my time, there was no partnership with the UFC. And during my time, if there was a partnership with the UFC, it would have been absolutely bonkers, because it would have been Khabib and Conor McGregor and all these other things happening and just blowing up. The end of, DC, the end of so many other legends, and the beginning of so many new UFC fighters that we could have covered. But right now, I'm glad that, UNLV has that partnership, or has mended that relationship per se, because I think the closest thing I covered when it came to combat sports at UNLV for Rebel Report was like a training that Floyd Mayweather had for like a New Year's boxing event in Japan against this Japanese kickboxer, and he destroyed the guy, poor guy. At least he got paid a lot. That's, ultimately I'd get knocked out for $10 million. I mean, some people would just get knocked out for free. But anyway, the point is that I, just ran away with, taking these opportunities, and making the most of it. And that's how I carry everything whenever it comes to, my career specifically, making the most of it. I'll never forget, the Rebel Report got access to cover the Vegas Golden Knights hockey team. And there were some people in my class at the Rebel Report that were complaining about the $15 parking. I'm not trying to say, and I'm not trying to minimize certain people who have financial burdens and stuff like that. What I am trying to say is, when you have the opportunity to cover hockey in Vegas, it's a major pro sports team, and you're in a sports-related journalism class, the last thing that you would argue and complain about is parking, okay? Like, $15 for parking gets made up with all the food that they give you and the snacks in the media booth. And when you go over there for media, they give you free water, they give you free snacks, whatever. But those people wouldn't know that because they didn't go to the games. So guess who jumped on that opportunity? I did. And I ended up going to between 30 and 40 games, including Stanley Cup Finals, Stanley Cup, the NHL playoffs, everything under the sun. And I would turn packages of the game report packages with the web script, and I would have it all done within an hour after the last interview / press conference with the coach. At that time, it was Gerard Gallant. And I remember the sports director for Channel 3, Brian Salmon. Amazing supporter, fantastic guy, and, he's kicking butt. I love that guy so much. He looked at me, he's like, how are you getting this stuff done so early? And I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, I don't like wasting time. I literally do not like wasting time. And I know in this industry, if you have free time, they'll give you another story to work on, right? Or they'll tell you, hey, go do something else, right? Go work on something else, right? But that's never how I was. Especially with the schooling background that I had with the International Baccalaureate. Procrastination existed, but everybody who procrastinated was not successful. Like, it was a foolproof thing whenever growing up. And I do that same exact thing when it comes to journalism and, the work that I put in here at the station, but even at the earlier age whenever I was in college. Because the news director in Las Vegas for sports, or the sports director rather, was like, how are you getting these things done? I told him, I'm writing these stories as the game is happening. The first period ends, we have 20 minutes to wait. It's a hockey game. 20 minutes almost, 18 minutes maybe, okay, give or take. But what are you doing in that time? Okay, yeah, you get up, let's say you use the restroom, you get some snacks, whatever. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Why not start planning the story? The game's already going to go late, and if it goes overtime and it's overtime hockey, then it's even more late. Like, I don't want to stay on the Vegas Strip past 1 a.m. covering sports when I don't need to be there. And that's a whole other thing too. There's so many drunk people there. There's so many just bad drivers that I don't want to be stuck in that, especially as a student. But at the same time, I was turning packages that were getting views on YouTube, that were getting good feedback, and other journalists around me were either impressed and telling me that or not saying that, but taking notes and doing similar things that I was doing. I would record the highlights from the press box, and I would try to post them immediately on the Twitter page for Rebel Report. And I'd do updates, and then the attendance, like whenever they'd read that, I'd post that. Nobody told me to do these things. These were just things that I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen other sports people do this, and I've seen my other sports accounts do this, so I'm going to do this too. That was just my MO. That was just my mentality. Always work my tail off. But yeah, especially in this industry, in journalism, one thing that we, tend to not really admit or not want to admit is that, it really helps to have a support system. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whether it's your college mates, it helps to have a support system. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but let's just say about 80% of my support system was gone after my time in college. And that made it really difficult to find anything in work, live a normal life, And as much as I wanted to get into sports immediately, I knew that wasn't going to happen because of the pandemic as well. The pandemic also coincided with me losing a lot of people in my life. And I graduated May 2020, but I didn't start my first job until April of 2021. That's also something that I really regret because I do feel like, other people my age probably are a little bit ahead as far as experience in this industry, when the truth of the matter is, I should be ahead as well, and I should have had a plan before I graduated. And my plan kind of exploded because I was applying to so many different places. It just wasn't working out. I got an interview with General News place in South Bend, Indiana, and I just said no. I just didn't want to do that. Like, I didn't want to do that sort of like uprooting and going to South Bend, and it just didn't seem like the right opportunity until one of my friends from Rebel Report, Lydia Vasquez, saw my name in a resume application for KCA U9 News with Nexstar in Sioux City, Iowa, and the rest is history because I did 3 years there. I was the weekend reporter, the weekend anchor But I wasn't just weekend anchoring. I was the producer, obviously. We had a 6 o'clock show. We had a 10 o'clock show. Sometimes we didn't have a photog, so I was the photog. Most of the time we didn't have a reporter on the weekends, so I was the reporter and the producer and the anchor for 2 shows a day. And at the end of everything, we didn't even have a digital person sometimes at night, so I would have to do that. I would have to draft web articles and stuff like that. So, I can say, me along with, quite a few other people in this industry, that I was essentially the station on the weekends. If I was not there, well, there was no option. I had to be there. If I wasn't there, they had no option. The station had no other option. They had nobody else that they had trained and planned ahead of time to, fill in for me. Like, they would have to go above and beyond to fill in for me if I was off on a weekend or no, way in advance. And that was extremely difficult. For 3 years living in Iowa, away from my family, experiencing winter for the first time, it was just extremely difficult. I went through a lot, and I had to do a lot of work, and I had to do a lot of different work, a lot of different range of work, and it was all under the idea of transitioning back into sports one day. Who knows if that day will ever come again, if I will ever have the opportunity to transition to sports. Because the truth of the matter is, nowadays, life is getting expensive, and sports in general, the entire sports industry needs more investment. It needs more investment with journalism. It needs more investment, with people who have degrees and have experience and have put in the work and have built networks, have built relationships, aren't afraid to tell certain stories, because it seems like so many people have agendas nowadays, especially in sports, that they want to push. And if you aren't on their side, then they don't want to talk to you. But if they are on your side, or they think that you're on their side, they'll be completely open to you. I don't think that's fair, because I see that in the Armenian community. I see that in the general sense of everything. I think that needs to change. I think that needs to change massively, because right now, sports is in a really particular spot overall. We see a lot of countries in other parts of the world that are investing in sports to a degree where it's like, to what extent is this sports washing? And if you don't know what sports washing is, I'm going to leave you guys on that to Google and research, because the truth of the matter is, I don't care what your politics are, but politics undoubtedly influences sports. And politics uses sports to its advantage. Unfortunately, that happens to this day. And I don't know where I'm going with this tangent, because we're about to wrap up this episode. But guys, this was an episode I almost feel like was therapy. I just kind of feel like I needed to just voice out a lot of things. I know I didn't go into certain details on certain things, but I think that's okay. It's deliberate. Whoever's watching, if anybody is watching, DM me on Instagram at RealJasonSarkis, Sarkis, RealJasonSarkis. If you have, somebody who think would be a good guest on the talk show, that would be great. And if you just want to chat about, the journalism industry, I'm open to it, because I still feel like I'm learning a lot about this industry that I don't know. And I'm going to leave you guys off on that, because I'm only 27. I turn 28 next year in February, and I feel like I got a lot of years ahead of me. I hope everything goes well in my career, and I hope that I can, maybe revisit this episode in about a year, just to, listen back to everything I've said, and hopefully I achieve some of the goals that I set out for myself, whether it's in sports, whether it's in my life, whether it's overall just in certain relationships. So for that is the talk show. Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you guys next week with hopefully a very special guest. Thank you very much. Goodbye.